Hello everybody and welcome back to In the Meadow with Kiki. I am so happy to be here and I'm so happy you're here. And welcome back to another episode of In the Meadow. I am so excited to sit down with you guys today. As always, it's been a heavier week than usual. And as I was meditating on recording this week, I felt this pull to just kind of hide and not record. Just because I wasn't necessarily in the same super enthusiastic magnetic energy that I'm usually in, and the message that just kept coming through is that the moments that I feel like this, that I feel heavier, that I feel insecurities rise and I feel my imposter syndrome and this pressure, if I'm going through it, that means that I'm not alone, and there's other people who are also going through it with it just as much as I am. And I think that it's my duty to show up in moments like this more than ever, because I know when I hear the creators that I love and admire talk about the things that they go through and the struggles that they go through, it makes me feel so much less alone and so seen and so understood. And I feel like if I am able to gain that from my favorite creators' courage, then I know that sharing my truth and where I'm at in my life right now is going to do the same for my perfect people as well. So yeah, I'm here and I'm so ready to talk about it, because I think it really is so crucial to talk about. And that is about the idea of how we base our worthiness around conditions. As in, most of the time, how worthy we feel and the worthiness level that we feel is completely conditional. And so I want to talk about how my experience and how it's happening in my world, just to have the example, but obviously we'll dive deeper into just how this is a trait and an experience that so many people go through. And what really inspired me and why I am talking about the creators that I'm talking about is because I watched a video this week. This woman, Isabel Page, if you have not heard of her, she's pretty niche, so it makes sense of a lot of people not knowing her, but if you have not heard of her, please check her out. Her name is Isabel Page, and she is a cinematographer and an artist living in the mountains of Washington. And it's funny because actually when I was prepping for this podcast, it made me realize that this woman is a huge part of how I began my journey that led me into the Meadow. Because it was 2020, it was like mid-pandemic. I found her YouTube channel, and she's just, this badass girl who lives in the woods, super off-grid, in her own little tiny house that she had built. Her family owns this property out there that she lives on, and she creates these little mini stories that look like vlogs. Anyone who would see them, I mean, saying the word vlog sounds crazy, but they look like day in the life, like come with me into my world kind of style content. And I remember how she would get a lot of hate for it being like, oh, this is not realistic, this is too curated, like this isn't real. And I remember reading those comments and I was like, well, no, duh. Obviously, she's a cinematographer. Like, I could tell, like, she's planning these shots, she's curating it, and she's really, like, creating these little short films, essentially, but through her own life. Like, she still shares her own life experiences, her own stories, how she's feeling that week. And so it's almost like this magical realism, I would say, of real life, but told through such a cinematic and poetic lens. And so she's been a huge inspiration to me for so many years. And I remember during that time, during the pandemic, a part of my story, if you guys don't know yet, is that when 2020 hit and the pandemic hit, I left my apartment in Los Angeles and I moved to this property. If you're watching on, if you're listening on podcast and you can't see the visuals, I'll leave a little screen grab of it below just so you can see where I'm sitting. So I moved into this property, my family's olive orchard that we bought in 2019. I moved there by myself, completely alone. I had a bell tent that I had just bought, ice chest, a little camping stove, and my car to charge all of my shit. And I spent the first 6 months of the pandemic completely alone here with my boyfriend, who'd come visit me every once in a while. Like, we got to fall in love under the olive trees. But it was, where the Meadow was born. It was this beautiful, magical space of serenity and peace in nature where I was finally able to just take a break and take a pause and really reflect onto what the fuck I wanted to do with my life. And so I was following her at the time, and that was what kind of like pushed me into this world where I thought that I was going to be a YouTuber and I was going to create content and art just like her as my career. And I learned really quickly that that wasn't really my path, but it's what led me to the path that I am on today. And so she was a huge influential part of my journey. And so long story short, the reason why I bring this up is because I saw an interview video of hers on this channel called, I'm blanking on the channel name. It's like the Spaghetti something. It's this man who interviews editors and filmmakers and creators and just asks them about their shit. And so Isabel was on his show, and I could not get enough of that 30-minute interview. And one thing that broke my absolute heart was that he was asking her about how, number one, if she read her comments, and she said no. She said that she's never read any of her comments, which is crazy to me because she's a huge creator now. She has thousands and thousands of comments of people loving her work and loving her art, but also, of course, hating, as we all know. And so that's kind of what led into the conversation. And she somehow, I forget exactly how the conversation led, but she essentially told him that she is incredibly insecure about her work and that she thinks that she is like the Walmart cinematographer and that she's horrible at cinematography and that she's a bad creator and that she's, she wants to be better than she is, but that she just quite simply isn't, and that she wishes she would be, but she's so far away from where she wants to be. And that just fucking broke my heart because I heard her say those words and I was like, oh my God, like if you look at this girl's channel, like please check her out. She is fucking incredible. Like she is so talented. She's so incredibly talented. And so hearing her say those words, she was essentially just saying how she's like, yeah, she's really fucking hard on herself. She's a crazy workaholic. She puts so much pressure on herself. And after all of these years of creating incredible content, of hundreds of thousands of people messaging her saying that her work is changing their lives and that it's the best, filmmaking that they've ever seen. And even then, she considers herself to be the Walmart cinematographer of filmmaking. I mean, even just saying that right now makes me want to cry because it's like, I think that all of us creatives, like if you're listening to the show, I know you're a creative. Like even if you don't say it out loud, we are creatives, and I'm attracting these people for a reason. And we are sensitive fucking people. And not only are we sensitive, but we have good taste and high standards. And it's just so crazy to me to think that someone like that has those feelings. And it brought me a lot of awareness to the week that I've been having, and so that's like the story that I wanted to start with, just so you guys have an idea of like, the topic of today. But truly, I look at my life and I look at where I'm at in my journey of creation and building my brand, building this beautiful community and this beautiful podcast. And one thing that I've noticed is that my way of measuring my worthiness is completely conditional. And so, for example, the last, I would say, month or two, I've been gaining a lot of momentum. My socials have been getting a lot of momentum. I've been getting such incredible feedback for the video on podcast. So many people are reaching out. It's doing so well. I've just been, gaining a lot of momentum and a lot of external validation of people like patting me on the back, being like, all right, Kiki, you're doing so good. Like, keep at it. You're doing great, honey. Like, keep it going. And I love that. It makes me feel so fucking good when I do get that external validation. But the sad part is that if I put that much weight and value on people praising me, I put just as much value on people either not praising me. I haven't really gotten much hate, but I have gotten like crickets, like some silence, and so the past, I'd say, week, like none of my videos have been doing really good on Instagram, and it's from those the videos I've been doing from my podcast onto Instagram. And it truly has set me into such a spiral of like, well, fuck, like this podcast, the reason that it was so nourishing to me and so healing to me was because there was no outside analytics that were gauging the worthiness of my posts. Like, yeah, I could see it, but the world couldn't see it. And so the podcast was this incredibly safe space to just express myself and not worry about, people's perception of how good it was doing, because like that's the thing I'm also realizing, that it's not even necessarily like my own like ego getting hurt that I'm only getting like 8 likes on a video reel. It's that I get worried about the external perception that people have of me for getting that little likes. And so that's like the crazy fucking mind fuck of all of this, where it's like excuse my language, I feel like I don't even know how to say that at this point, but like it's that crazy mind fuck that like what am I even caring about? Like, do I care that there's this little likes, or am I just so fucking scared of people's perception of me, seeing me as a quote unquote failure, or that I'm not doing good enough, or like this is cringe, or this is embarrassing, you know? Somehow when I post a vulnerable video of me, if it gets a lot of likes, I feel empowered and I feel like confident and I feel worthy, you know, versus when it doesn't get many likes and it's a vulnerable video of me talking, I suddenly think about that being something super negative on myself, and that makes me feel insecure and embarrassed and cringe and like, what the fuck am I even doing this all for, you know? And so, yeah, I guess I really want to sit down with you guys in this conversation this week to just remember that our worthiness is not conditional, and we cannot make it conditional. We cannot base our worthiness and how we feel about our business and our lives and our careers based on the external validation of others, because there's no fucking winning at that point. You know, it's like I compare myself to people in my life who have huge platforms. Like, I have people in my life that have massive platforms on social media who get an insane amount of likes every week, right? But the more I realize that we're all fucking going through the same thing. It doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers or if you have 2,000 followers. No one's immune to this, because people that have those many followers and lots of likes, they just have a different gauging system of what's something good and what's a failure. I'm going to readjust the lighting really quickly. So it's like, what are we searching for? Like, what level of success do we think we're going to feel safe at, right? When it comes to, you know, okay, well, once I have 1 million followers, then I'm going to feel good. Okay, well, what happens when you have 1 million followers and the algorithm does its thing and you only get 1,000 likes on your photo? What then? Like, what does having 1 million followers save you from? You know, 1 million followers has more eyes on you and more haters. Like, I'm not saying that as something to like to push you away from, you know, wanting many followers, but it's just being realistic about the fact that like the grass is always greener where we water it. You know, we always make it seem like the grass is greener somewhere else, and we think that if we have this amount of money, or we have this amount of fame, or if we have this amount of recognition or validation from people patting us on the back, then we're safe and we're good and like we're protected. When in reality, it's like we have to protect ourselves through our own energetic sovereignty and know our value and our worthiness is innate. It is deeply, deeply innate, and nothing can take that away from us. But it's a choice that we have to make to protect ourselves, to put some kind of force field around us, a shell to protect us, not to, you know, not be vulnerable, not be open, but to be able to base our validation and our worthiness on being innate. Our worthiness is not conditional. There's nothing that we can do to be more worthy or less worthy of a being as a person. We just are. And that's the fucking name of the game. I think that I've been bringing up the word worthiness a lot recently, because it's so real. Like, it truly is just such a deep, deep core aspect of why we get the things we want in life or not. You know, there's people out there with such less talent, less skill, less ability than us, who's making a fuck ton more money just because simply they believe they're worthy of it. That's it. And so as creatives, as artists, as sensitive people, we have such high fucking standards for ourselves because we have high standards for other people. You know, it's like we know good art when we see it, but for some reason we're not able to give ourselves the grace and compassion that we're able to give other people. Like, I can see Isabel, the girl that I was talking about, and I can give her all the grace and compassion in the world, but when it comes to myself, you know, and I'm hyper analyzing and looking at the reels that I've been making for my podcast and being like, well, shit, like the first video was like the lighting was perfect, the sun was dappling through the trees, it was on my face, my makeup was great, my hair was looking awesome. And so then the next video that I posted, the lighting wasn't as good and my hair didn't look as nice and my skin tone looked a little bit weird in the camera. And because of that, I've been nitpicking the fuck out of it all week. And I look at the week that I've had, how much precious energy I have wasted on hyperanalyzing myself, and how sad it is to even admit to that. Part of the interview that he had, I'm so sorry I'm blanking on the name. I'm going to put it all in the show notes, obviously. I really recommend that you watch Isabel's channel as well as an interview with her if you're interested in cinematography or filmmaking like I am. You're going to be obsessed. But he mentioned a quote by Virgil Abloh, the designer, about how, like, when you're first starting out in your career, you have such good taste because that's what got you in the game. You know, you got good taste because it's what got you into the game. But there's a learning curve in this gap that you need to be comfortable with, of this time that it takes for you to catch up to your taste. And that blew my mind. And it reminds me of the quote as well about how like we have, you know, I'm blanking exactly on, it's Rick Rubin. I'm forgetting exactly how the quote goes, but like it's essentially saying that like, you know, our visions start in our mind, you know, and they're limitless, but then we have to bring them down to 3D earth reality to create it, and it will never compare, you know, and we just have to be able to exist within the both and make it work. And so, yeah, I think it's so important. Now that I'm saying this, I feel like the most important thing you can do is just like take a fucking step back and look at your life through a third person perspective, and look at yourself and the things that you're going through as if you are your friend, you know, or your mom or your sister, or like somebody who loves you and who sees you as you. And try telling them your insecurities, and, you know, as in you, and try expressing your insecurities and look at yourself through that perspective. And I think it can give you so much clarity, you know. And I think, yeah, the grass is greener where you water it, baby. The grass is greener where you water it. How can we stop giving away our power to all of these external validations and realities that mean nothing? Social media, in the grand scheme of things, is not real. My worthiness will never be able to be measured by vanity metrics on a fucking app on our little computer screens on our phones. Like, it's heartbreaking to even say that, you know, to even look at where I'm at in my life and what I'm creating, all the magic and the beauty in this community that I'm building, and that, yeah, it just so happens that the algorithm or whatever, or the videos just weren't doing that good, that I'm letting that like tank me and bring me completely under. Yeah, so that's kind of, I think that's all I want to talk about today. I think it's going to be a shorter episode, but it was just really on my heart, and I feel like we all need to hear this, and we all really need to remember this, that our worthiness is innate. It is not conditional, and we can never let it be conditional. We can never let it take our power away like that. And keep creating with detachment. As hard as it is, me right now, I almost didn't show up because it's too late in the day, the light's gone, and so in my mind I was like, well, fuck, if I felt that insecure about the lighting on my last video, I could never post a video like this, you know, with the light being gone. And then I remembered, I was like, you know what, I watched a couple of videos today of these other creators that have massive fucking, you know, $1 million deals, podcast shows, you know, specifically like this one girl who's under the Call Her Daddy platform. Sweet girl, I love her energy, but like I was looking at her videos and I'm like, damn, like she's just recording them in her car, in her bedroom, the shittiest lighting ever, and it doesn't matter because people are here for her energy. They don't give a fuck, you know. It's like some of my favorite creators in my own space, like I remember listening to their podcast and the audio quality was so shit, and I still listen to it because it was so fucking good. I look at where I'm at in my podcast as a one-woman show, a solopreneur, building a business and a brand, launching a clothing brand while I'm continuing this podcast, and I still have the audacity to be so hypercritical of myself. And not even that, you know, it's like it's one thing to be hypercritical, and then it's a whole other thing to let that stop me from fucking creating. Because I could feel it. I could feel my momentum start to slow down, letting the insecurities win, letting the insecurities like push me over, and like have this insane perfectionism around like, well, fuck, like I can only record in the perfect lighting on the perfect day. And I'm just learning to pivot. You know, I'm going to learn that this podcast is a sacred space. You know, maybe I'm not going to be, you know, making 15 videos every week of the podcast, and be a little bit more intentional with the videos I share. But whatever it is, I'm going to keep fucking showing up, and you better too. Because if you're ever in a situation where you feel like your art or your expression is not fully validated, keep fucking going. There was this creator that I found on Instagram. I'm actually going to tell you her name right now before I forget. I'm also going to link it in the show notes, but her name is Alice, and her Instagram is Alice with a Z on Earth. I will add it in the show notes below, but I found her Instagram like 2 weeks ago. She has 41 followers. Her videos get like an average of like, you know, under, I don't even want to say the number, but like they don't get that many likes yet because she hasn't been discovered yet. And her art is fucking amazing. It is so beautiful. It is incredible. So thoughtful and provoking and cinematic. and she barely has an audience, but she's doing the fucking thing, and she's not letting it stop her. Imagine if she stopped herself because she was scared of, you know, the feeling of not being seen. Then I would have never been able to find her, and I wouldn't have been able to shout her out on this Instagram right now. It's like, this other creator, I'm forgetting all the names. My life with Risa, I think is her name on YouTube. She also was a creator who was creating content for so many years, beautiful, pouring her heart and soul into this content, and she didn't blow up until like 6 years into her career. And so yeah, I'm gonna leave you guys with that. Today was more of a conversational, and I feel like if I needed to say it, then there's people who needed to hear it, and I hope that you gained something from this episode. Yeah, I love you guys so much. Please feel free. Message me. Love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you guys want to hear from the show. Like, what topics are you interested in? Like, what do you want to talk about? Please let me know if there's any topics or conversations that you want to have. I'm all ears. I'd love to hear it. So yeah, I love you guys so much. If you have not yet downloaded my free magnetic morning ritual, it is in the show notes below, or my Path to Purpose workbook. I've been getting so much love on those two offerings recently, and I believe in them with all my heart, and I really recommend that you guys check it out if you have not yet already. As well as, if you enjoyed the show, please think about leaving a review for the Meadow. It means everything. Whether you're on Spotify, you can just leave a star. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can leave an actual review. Yeah, it means the world. It makes the community grow, and it makes my heart burst whenever I see people talking about it. Yeah, I love you guys so much. I hope this episode resonated with you, and I will see you next week.